Hey everyone, Robert here, author of Expansion Mastery, the practical guide to living a fully engaged life. Are you ready to start living life to its fullest? Are you ready and willing to transform yourself and your life from ordinary to extraordinary? What are you waiting for? Welcome, my friends, to the Fully Engaged Life. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I assume by now that you've made your way over to www.expansionmastery.com and claimed your signed copy of Expansion Mastery, the practical guide to living a fully engaged life, for a mere $5. If you haven't done so, make sure you do so right now. Get over there and order your signed copy at a 75% savings while you can. And you will have an important and practical guidebook right in your hands on what it takes to begin living a fully engaged life. So get yours today. This is the fifth and final episode in this 5-part series addressing the 5 potentials and 5 powers. These potentials and powers are inherent in all human beings, but they must be brought out. And it is these 5 things that go into creating an incredibly powerful foundation that allows us to live a fully engaged life. So in this 5th episode, we'll be addressing the potential and power of wisdom. Wisdom is just one more essential piece to the personal and spiritual puzzle that allows us to achieve mastery and live a fully engaged life. First, you must grasp the difference between knowledge and wisdom. This is just crucial. No, they are not the same thing. Knowledge is great. Knowledge is necessary. But it's merely the stuff of intellect. And on its own, doesn't offer as much value as we in the West have come to place on it. Yes, there are times when we need to rely on our intellect, especially when we are working. But this knowledge, regardless of how much knowledge you have, knowledge by itself doesn't make you wise. Knowledge is not wisdom. Some say wisdom comes with experience, and this would also be true to an extent, but it doesn't provide the whole picture. It helps you to get there. It's the process to attaining wisdom, but there is a missing component when you rely on experience alone. Others claim that wisdom comes simply with age. Well, perhaps in some cases, but certainly not everyone who is older is wiser. The days of growing wiser as you grow older have come to pass. Civilization has kind of bred that out of us. Wisdom is not knowledge. True wisdom is the ability to know truth, the ultimate truth, the truth that cannot be known by the ordinary mind. Wisdom is something beyond illusion and delusion. It is the stuff of a higher vibrational frequency. One distinction that I find especially helpful is to look at knowledge as intellect, but wisdom as true divine intelligence. You may recall a very special formula I've been sharing with you time and time again. Remember that one? It goes something like this: knowledge plus experience equals wisdom. Remember that? Through this formula, you can see that knowledge has great value, as does experience. But the true potential is only realized when you bring them together. That's when you're able to unlock the power of wisdom. The best term I've heard in regards to wisdom is that it's actually a very practical form of divine intelligence. I think that's wonderful and spot on. Now, let's examine this formula a little more deeply. Knowledge is the first element. It's referring to realizing something that we didn't originally know even existed. It's learning how and why things work. The trick is to make sure the knowledge you acquire is actually true. It's actually factual. In these modern times, known as the information age, there is an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation out there. I was listening to a talk given by a retired CIA officer who was saying that the CIA right now is referring to this stage of the information age as the information apocalypse. And this is usually what happens before one age falls and a new age arises. So even places like these intelligence organizations are aware of the ages as they come and go, as they rise and fall, and they can see that this is at the peak and it's going to fall. So at this moment in time, it's very important to discriminate in the sources which we decide to take our knowledge from. We need to make sure it's factual, it's correct. And we have to even understand that what is considered to be fact today is likely to be disproven within the next 10 years or so. So you couple all of this with the majority of people who are becoming increasingly entrenched in their heads, stuck in their heads, so the ego continues to grow, more dominant of the mind, and you have a real problem here. The solution I present is to take any knowledge you acquire and hold it lightly in a state of fluidity, instead of creating concrete beliefs around it. Knowledge in a fluid state means that you accept it for now based only upon the current level of research you have done and the current level of information around it that is available to you at the time. And that with the ever-changing understanding, you will remain open to changing what you accept as truthful knowledge. And you can use this to help circumvent yourself from unconsciously creating a lot of mental beliefs around these things that just are not true. If you take a closer look at knowledge in the specific context of spiritual expansion and the powerful practices within spirituality, you see it refers to developing a deep sense of understanding for the practices. You must first learn of the practices to even know they're out there, and whether they're actually authentic or just worthless fluff. There's no shortage of that. You need to examine and research and receive initiation into the spiritual system in order to understand the esoteric nature of many of these practices. The better you understand the practice, its process, and its purpose, the closer you become to succeeding and benefiting from the results. One of the things I like to teach clients is how to distinguish between authentic practices and those that are just silly fluff, because there's absolutely no shortage of made-up silly stuff that doesn't work. And I want my clients to be able to understand how to distinguish what is real and what is not. But of course, this look at knowledge is just half of the equation. We then have to look at the idea of experience. Experience is the direct interaction with something that allows you to develop a greater sense of intelligence for it. This is when you get your hands dirty and personally engage the task at hand over time. One of the most overlooked areas of experience is that it doesn't come immediately. It comes only over time. That's implied in the term experience, that you have a lot of time spent working with something, right? So we need to allow it to develop over time, and we need to combine that with constant interaction. And it is the constant interaction with something over time that gives us experience. So you can see how impatience would be one of the hindrances to attaining experience. Now, if you look at experience in the specific context of spiritual expansion and powerful practices within spirituality, you see it refers to developing a deep sense of interaction with these practices and what is given to you through the results of these practices, certain abilities. So this refers to developing a deep sense of interaction with the practices themselves. This is when the practices are just life itself. Not something you do, not something separate from you, but just part of who you are and what you do. It's just life itself. Experience is our ability to directly and personally interact with the practice in order to get comfortable with it on a much deeper, more intimate level. It's the experience that allows you to learn the deeper and more intricate aspects that simply cannot be conveyed through language, written or spoken. And it has to be learned by intelligence. It cannot be learned through intellect. Experience gives you the feel for it, allowing you to develop a knack for engaging it. This knack you develop allows you to attain a sense of intelligence that is not the same as purely mental intellect. But experience comes only over time, with consistent, direct, and personal engagement with the practice. It doesn't happen overnight. And the more years or even decades you spend engaging the practices, the more masterful you become, the more experience you have. High degrees of experience lead you into a state of mastery. In many cases, the experience is even more important than the knowledge. But it's a combination of both that actually unlocks the true potential that leads to the wisdom we seek. Wisdom, from a spiritual perspective, points to an integrated blend of both knowledge and experience. But the deeper realization of wisdom is that it refers to an intelligence that comes only from reconnecting to our true self, our true voice. And we are then connected to the wisdom of our own divinity. This is where wisdom comes from, not your head. It is this divine universal intelligence that allows us to become capable of tuning into our true guidance, the voice of our true self as it guides us through life, and we're able to do that on a regular basis. True wisdom is the ability to know, not from the mind, but from a far deeper place within. And this is something that those who lack wisdom cannot possibly comprehend. Wisdom is divinely inspired. True wisdom is reflected in a higher vibrational frequency and more vibrant electromagnetic field that surrounds your body. Let me be clear about something here. Where there is ego, there is the absence of essence. And likewise, where there is ego, there is the absence of wisdom. So you can choose either ego or you can choose essence and wisdom. Your choice. Choose wisely. Catching on to the bigger picture yet? I'd like to share a personal example of how the egoic mind has a tendency to grab on to one extreme or the other. In other words, it doesn't like to bring the knowledge and experience together. It feels either it has to rely all on knowledge or all on experience. So from a personal example, I spent all of my youthful years toiling in various factories, from steel factories to plastic mold injection factories to chemical factories. I've worked in about every sort of factory. And in every case, there are two camps. You have those in management who would rely primarily, if not completely, on knowledge, on their book smarts, right? They get out of college, they get hired at their job. They don't have any experience in the subject at all, but they have a lot of knowledge about the subject. But very often they run into trouble with what they're trying to implement on the factory floor, because what appears good on paper and makes sense to them intellectually just doesn't turn out to be practical down on the floor in the real world, in reality, at all. Now, on the other hand, you have the majority of the factory workers who are out on the floor, working with the equipment and the product day in and day out. They come to rely upon the experience they acquire from daily interaction with this. See how it's consistent daily practice? It's your job, right? So you're there every day, you're interacting with the equipment and the product and everything. So they have this experience from a very practical standpoint. Now, they lack the education surrounding the theories and principles of a lot of the equipment and maybe the composure of the end product itself and other aspects of it, but they know how to do it. Okay? And in many instances, and I saw this in every single type of factory I worked at, there was little tricks of the trade, right? Little things that the workers figured out through that experience that kind of defied the knowledge of the people who were relying on that. It didn't make sense in what they were taught, but yet it actually produced real results in physical reality. But for those who desired to truly master what they were doing, they had to develop both. They would study the subject matter and then get their hands dirty with it every day. And there were a few people who possessed both knowledge and experience on the focus of the product and process of the factory. But those who did were looked up to and relied upon, especially when major problem solving was necessary. So through this experience, I understood the great value of knowledge, but I also understood that experience was just a bit more valuable in the long run. And if you took both of these valuable aspects and you put them together, then you had wisdom. Then you had a sense of mastery. So it's the mind, especially when dominated by ego, but an unconscious mental process that convinces us that if we just have the knowledge, we're good to go, or if we just have the experience, that's enough. And that's not true. That's not the case. And part of unlocking the potential, the vast potential and power within spiritual practices, you have to understand that it takes both. You must take to heart the equation that I've shared with you. Okay, so let's get into the practice of understanding the potential and power of wisdom as we finish this set of 5 potentials and powers. As usual, this has 2 parts. So we're going to look at these contemplative, meditative practices one at a time. The first will be the potential of wisdom. Now, these are meditative practices, so we are going to rely on contemplation here. And that is why it is a meditative practice and not meditation itself. Contemplation is not meditation. Contemplation involves thought, whereas meditation is to become still, silent. And what that means is completely free of thought, is to attain an actual level beyond not thinking, but letting go of the mind altogether. So let's go ahead and get started. The potential of wisdom. Make sure to find a nice, comfortable, safe, quiet place to sit. Make sure to get rid of distractions. Sit and get as comfortable as you need to. And you can leave your eyes open, half open, or even closed for a contemplation exercise. Once you've settled in and you're ready, just listen to what I'm expressing here and use it as a focus of contemplation. what I'd like you to do is to contemplate the potential of wisdom. When that wisdom is a deep sense of knowing the ultimate divine truth and the truth of the nature of all things in the world. Think about the pure, raw potential that would be available if you possessed the wisdom to know truth. Imagine how much easier and more beneficial your life choices could be if you had this wisdom. Can you take a moment to recall a time in your life when you knew someone who was truly wise? Maybe you looked up to them and you sought their opinion, valued their opinion on particular life matters. Can you remember how helpful that was for you? Well, what would it be like if you possessed that wisdom for yourself? What if you possessed an even greater wisdom? How incredible could your life be if it were guided by your own sense of wisdom, where you were no longer susceptible to the external illusions of the world, and you were no longer susceptible to the internal delusions of the ego-dominated mind? Take a moment to imagine the potential you hold through the attainment of confidence, courage, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. Imagine the potential that lies within those 5 powerhouse attributes. Take some time to contemplate each one of those things. Take as much time as you like. When you're finished, make sure that you reverse any processes that you may have undergone to go from the external to the internal. Make sure and open your eyes slowly and allow them to adjust to the light if you're in a lighted room. Make sure that you get up slowly after you reconnect to the physical body. See, we have to understand that wisdom is a state beyond the normal mind that falls for all of the external illusions of the world, everything society creates, and things we are taught by so many people who really haven't attained any sense of wisdom at all. And it allows us then to be free of our own internal mental delusions that the ego-dominated mind has caused us to form beliefs around. That alone makes wisdom an incredibly powerful attribute. And if we take an objective look around the world right now, we can see just how rare wisdom is in this modern age. It appears to me that wisdom is in short supply in today's world. So we need to change that. We need to bring more wisdom into our world. Can you imagine how wisdom will help fuel this consciousness shift? Maybe take a moment to contemplate on that. That's pretty incredible. Okay, let's take a look at the second part. Practice number 2, the power of wisdom. You're going to treat this as a contemplative, meditative exercise, just like the first one. So go ahead and settle in, get rid of the distractions, get comfortable. If you're going to utilize something like the breath bridge or some other source to go from your external world to your internal world so you're not distracted by outer sensory circumstances, I highly recommend that. But whatever works for you. And then take a few deep breaths, settle in, and what you're going to do is contemplate on a few more things. I want you to understand that it's easy to be defeated when the formula of knowledge plus experience is out of balance, if you are relying on one while neglecting the other. Because it is these two things together that allows you to attain wisdom. And without wisdom, your chances of attaining awakening and spiritual expansion become substantially lower. And to just put it bluntly, impossible. So when you have this wisdom, you stand upon a very solid foundation that ensures your success. Contemplate the immense power of true wisdom, free of external illusion, free of internal delusion. Imagine the power you would experience if you were able to have this divine, universal intelligence. Imagine how powerful you would be if you were armed with true wisdom. Take a moment to imagine the power that you would possess through the attainment of a combination of 5 forces: confidence, courage, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. There is nothing in life you could not accomplish. Take a moment to visualize yourself as that person, as a person who is confident, courageous, mindful, capable of great concentration and incredible wisdom. Envision how that would transform yourself and your life from ordinary to super extraordinary. See it. Feel it inside. How incredible would that be if you were that person, if you had those attributes? They truly are powers that the ordinary person does not possess. Contemplate these things as long as you like. And when you are finished, make sure to reverse the process. Once again, reconnecting to the external world. Opening your eyes slowly. Getting comfortable in your body, moving around a little bit before standing up. It is vitally important to understand the potential these 5 attributes hold. This is the knowledge. Interaction with the 5 attributes so that you can attain their power is the experience. You know of the practice. You've already attained the first half of the equation. Now all you have to do is spend some time gaining experience with them. Once you do that, you'll achieve mastery of these 5 areas of expanded self, and you'll be living a fully engaged life. I hope you've enjoyed this series of the 4 efforts, the 4 intentions, and the 5 powers and the 5 potentials. Together, they are an incredibly powerful set of practices. And I am entrusting them to all of you. I trust that you know what to do with them, that you will interact with them, and that you will share them with others to help perpetuate the energy of this great consciousness shift so that we can work together to make the world a better place, so that we can experience a sense of human harmony and unity in a healthy manifestation. Please make sure and stop by all of my social media, my author page on Facebook, on Twitter. Please share this podcast and other things on all of your platforms. You can also stop by our YouTube page. Keep looking for a bunch of exclusive content that's going to be there. I'm going to be doing some video content there, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, make sure to visit www.expansionmastery.com. Pick up your copy of the Appreciation Mastery Program if you want another extremely powerful spiritual practice at your fingertips. And you can order that up, as well as your copy of Expansion Mastery, the Practical Guide to Living a Fully Engaged Life, for only $5. Come on. $5, that's it. And I've got the Breath Bridge listed on there too. So if you're having a difficult time with shifting from the external world to your inner world, The Breath Bridge is a proven solution, so make sure you get your copy today. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you spreading the word and sharing the content that I'm sharing, especially this podcast. Read my book, give it to somebody else, pass it on, buy them at $5. You can just buy them a copy anyway, right? Get it out. Let's get this out, people. You got to help me. I can't do it alone. I'm trying, but I need your help. I need you to back me so that we can get this out to the world. Together, we can make the type of impact necessary at this point in time for the world and everyone in it. Until next time, my friends, I wish you all the best in your practices and your life. Take care.